Today, we are digging into one of the most critical decisions any modern business has to make. Should your data and applications live in the cloud, or should you keep them on-premise? Now, this goes way beyond just the IT department. It really hits your security, your budget, and your actual ability to grow and compete. And just to set the stage here, the stakes could not be higher. Look at that number, nearly $5 million. That's the average cost of a single data breach. That right there is exactly why this decision, where your data physically lives, is so incredibly important to get right. So that brings us right back to the big question. Where should your data live? Is it better to own and manage everything yourself, in-house? Or does it make more sense to rent resources from a massive, specialized provider? Let's break it down and figure it out. Here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll talk about why this is such a high-stakes choice. Then, we'll define what we actually mean by cloud and on-premise. We're going to put them head-to-head in a three-factor showdown, introduce a popular third option that mixes things up, and finally, give you a framework to make the right call for you. Right, so let's be clear, this isn't just some small technical detail. It is a core strategic choice. The path you pick is going to have a direct ripple effect on your data security, your budget, and your planning for years to come. So, to make a really smart choice here, we first have to get on the same page about what we're even talking about. Let's really clearly define these two foundational models. First up, we've got on-premise. The easiest way to think about this is like owning a house. You own the building, the land, and every single thing inside it. Your servers, your software, your security systems, it's all physically located in your building. You have total control, but also total responsibility for all of it. And then you have the alternative, the cloud. Now, if on-prem is owning a house, the cloud is like renting a high-tech, super secure apartment. You don't own the building. Instead, you pay a provider, like Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure, to host everything for you in their huge data centers. You just access it all over the internet, and you pay for it like a utility. Okay, now that we know what they are, let's put these two models in the ring and see how they stack up. We're going to compare them across the three factors that matter most to pretty much any organization: cost, scalability, and of course, security. First up, let's talk about money, because this is where the two models are just completely different. On-premise demands a huge upfront investment, what's called a capital expenditure, or CapEx. You have to buy all the servers, the software, everything. For a small business, that could easily be, say, $125,000 right out of the gate. The cloud just flips that on its head. There's basically zero upfront cost. It's a predictable monthly bill, an operating expense, or OpEx. That same business might only be paying $750 a month. And this quote from an architect at AWS really nails a key advantage. Because you're paying as you go, you can try new things, you can experiment, and if something doesn't work out, you just turn it off. There's no massive financial loss. And what's even better, as you get smarter about how you use it, those monthly bills often start to go down. Okay, next up is scalability. Basically, your ability to grow or handle sudden spikes in traffic. With on-premise, well, you're pretty much stuck with the hardware you bought. If you suddenly get a huge rush of customers, you're in trouble. Scaling up means buying more servers, which is slow and it's expensive. The cloud, on the other hand, is what we call elastic. Resources can stretch or shrink automatically, in real time, to meet whatever demand you have. You literally never pay for power you aren't using. And if you want a perfect real-world example of this in action, just think about Zoom back in early 2020. They went from 10 million daily users to 300 million in just 4 months. An on-premise system would have just melted. It would have completely collapsed. Only the insane, on-demand scalability of the cloud made that kind of explosive growth even remotely possible. All right, finally, let's tackle the big one, security. This is where it gets a little more nuanced. On-premise gives you absolute total control. For certain industries, think defense or healthcare, where the rules about data are ironclad, that can be a deal breaker. But, and it's a big but, all of that control means the security burden is 100% on you. The cloud providers, they're security specialists with armies of experts. They use what's called a shared responsibility model. In simple terms, they secure their global infrastructure, and you are responsible for securing your data within that infrastructure. Now, you might think that managing all that complex compliance stuff would be easier when you have total control, right? Well, for most companies, the reality is actually the opposite. A massive 91% of businesses say the cloud's built-in tools actually make it easier for them to meet all those strict government rules. And what about your overall security? Well, this number might surprise you. It turns out a staggering 94% of businesses reported that their security actually improved after they moved to the cloud. And it makes sense when you think about it. These cloud providers have resources and expertise dedicated to security that most individual companies just could never afford to match. So after all that, you might be thinking, okay, so does it have to be an all or nothing choice? And the answer is a big, resounding no. For most modern companies, the real answer to cloud or on-premise is both. Which brings us to the hybrid approach. The hybrid approach is really a best of both worlds strategy. It's where you combine your own on-premise hardware with services from the public cloud to create one single, flexible system. This lets you be really smart about where you run each part of your business. So the logic here is pretty straightforward. You keep your most sensitive, most critical data right there on your own servers where you have that absolute control. Then you use the cloud's amazing scalability and cost efficiency for everything else. Things like development, testing, or apps that have really spiky traffic. It also gives you a safe, gradual path to move more things over time. And listen, this isn't some niche idea. The data is crystal clear. A hybrid strategy is now the dominant model out there. A full 89% of companies are using a hybrid or multi-cloud approach. It's become the new standard. So, we've defined the models, we've put them head to head, we've looked at the hybrid option. Now let's tie it all together. How do you actually figure out what's the right fit for your business? The right choice really just comes down to asking the right questions about your own situation. Are you a small company that's expecting to grow like crazy? The cloud scalability's a game changer. Are you in an industry with intense regulations? That on-premise control might be something you can't live without. Can you afford a huge upfront bill, or is a predictable monthly payment better? Do you have the expert staff to manage all this stuff 24/7? Answering these honestly will point you in the right direction. And that really leads us to the final and maybe the most important thought. This is not a decision you make one time and then forget about. Your business is changing, technology is changing. The real key here is to constantly ask yourself this question. Does our strategy fit us today? And more importantly, will it still fit us tomorrow?